Hi, Erika Brown. How are you today?
Hey guys, hey Heather, hey Corey. Great to see you.
What's going on in the great towns of Manchester and Essex via the Manchester Cricket this week?
There's a lot going on. I mean, there really is. A lot of stuff on government in no particular order. I'm going to say that the Monday meeting for the Board of Selectmen in Manchester, they ushered in a couple of highlights. Number one, sort of the phased reentry to life as normal for public parks and in particular Singing Beach. They're going to start this phased approach. I think every town is doing the exact same thing. It's going to be like what happens after the 19th, morning of the 19th. There was a lot of discussion, and they compared it actually to Rocky Neck in Rockport. Bearskin Neck in Rockport. That Singing Beach is an attraction, so they want to moderate people coming from out of town. And so the big discussion on Singing Beach was, A, how do you know who's a resident and who's not, and how do you regulate that? Number two, in phase one, is it really meaningful to have weekend only, residents only, when we're all sheltering in place, nobody's going to their jobs, and a Wednesday is exactly like a Sunday, you know?
Exactly.
And then there was also talk about what's appropriate once you get to the beach. So are you allowed to stay and go swimming? Guess what? The answer is no. You have to keep moving. You have to either be running or walking, and you have to have social distancing. So that's what they're going to do. So that was really interesting. We have Mother's Day coming up this weekend. So all the retailers, we've talked about that. I'm just sticking with Manchester, but the retailers are really coming out and doing creative things. We have a great piece on all the fun stuff you can do to buy mom something and what the retailers are doing to make it really special. A lot of them have come up with their own sort of packages. And then Corey, I know you probably won't, I don't know if you ever do this but the Bridge Cape, I'm going to shout out to you. The Bridge Cape Ann you created that incredible page, and we gave you a lot of love in the paper.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Yes, where you can actually buy there. It's really in one place online. You can get links to get gift cards. So you can, the truth is you can get a Mother's Day brunch, just schedule it in July or August, and get it with a gift card. And that's for, businesses all over Cape Ann. So we had that as well. And then you remember the football field town meeting? I'm going back and forth between, this is just Manchester. So remember we talked about Alan Wilson was talking about maybe having town meeting outside, right?
Yeah.
And at the time we thought, that's kind of funny. Guess what? He gave his recommendations this week formally. There was 3 options, and his top option is to do it on the football field over at the Manchester Essex Regional High School, because it's got electricity, it's handicapped access, and apparently there's something, and I learned this from Pam Thorne, who is a resident of Manchester, but the town clerk over in Essex. And she said that one of the requirements for town meeting, for some reason, it's kind of interesting, it has to be on a flat surface. Isn't that weird?
So
in the old days, couldn't they just shout from the hilltop?
You're right.
Outer Hill.
Exactly. Well, they also, they also have to have access to electricity, and also they do voting. We do voting with like remote controls, a gadget, right? And that has to be within 150 feet of its home base, which is Christina St. Pierre, our town clerk. It's her laptop computer. So that's what it has to be. So that's what we're going to do. I think, it's not final yet, but I think it's going to happen. So
I would put Christine in a jetpack just and hover over the stadium.
That's a great idea.
So I do have a question.
That.
I'm trying to picture this. Are people standing on the field, or are they in the stands, or both?
I didn't picture it that way. No, I pictured that what they would do is they would have seats. They would put out chairs, and they would put them 6 feet apart, but then have options for people to sit together if they're in a family.
So it sounds like what they were thinking of doing in Rockport for graduation. Something similar.
Right. I'll bet. Yeah, I bet there are, it's funny. There are probably best practices now. Don't you think?
Exactly.
Like best practices. So that happened. Over in Essex, though, this week there was a lot of stuff happening. Stuff that was kind of light and fun and awesome, and then stuff that was like really serious business. Under the serious business category, there was this, it was confusing. I actually was confused about it in the paper, and I have to put in a little correction or an adjustment. The Botanics, like botanical. They're the guys that are going to put this. They want to do this recreational marijuana retail shop. It was supposed to be over by Harlow Street, which was on Eastern Avenue, 133 going towards exit 13, right? Or exit 14.
14.
And so over by Essex Seafood and the entrance to Canomo Point, basically. And it was very controversial, and they were going to do it there. And they actually moved it to the 133 on the other side of town going to Ipswich, basically on the Ipswich line, over by downriver.
Ice cream, Brunei's, Old Market, and all that down there. Yeah.
That's right. So that happened, and now what they're doing is, and I thought the host agreement, which is the agreement that is required by the state law that any marijuana shop, recreational marijuana shop, has to do with a town to essentially the rules of play for how you're going to, and it allows for the town to actually make additional money off of all the sales based on the fact that this new unproven kind of category of substances is going to be now available for sale to the public in your municipality. So that's actually going forward, the host agreement. And on Monday, they had a joint meeting with the planning board and the board of selectmen. And I thought it was actually to review the final draft of the host agreement, which is pretty much done. It's been a long effort by a committee to do that. But actually, it was related to that. It was actually a hearing that you could tell that the town, all the selectmen were there and all the planning board, they were gearing up for a big public input session for Article 17 at town meeting, which will be a change of the zoning law to allow for retail marijuana sales. So it's not really the host agreement. It's actually for the bylaw. And the bylaw, I'm actually going to look at my notes really quickly. They're going to change it where right now they have medical marijuana regulated in the town of Essex, and it has to be within 2,500 feet of a school, or, they have these setback requirements. They're actually adjusting that. And I think what they're doing is they're adjusting it based on the site that these guys want to go into. And they're actually reducing it to 400 feet from 2,500 feet, which is interesting. But they're inserting that it's got to be, and I think this is specific to this site, it's got to be within 400 feet of any property on which the principal use is a residence. And that's in a change of the language. But anyway, so the big deal is it's medical. I mean, medical marijuana has been allowed in Essex, and now there's going to be retail recreational marijuana, and that is going to be up for a town meeting. The next thing is going to be the host agreement, and that's going to be at the end of this month, and that'll be that public forum. I had confused those.
And how many citizens showed up for that meeting to give input?
Well, with the calls and the web calls or the conference calls, you can't tell because they don't tell you. But you could tell they were saying, "Okay, now save your public input. We don't want any outbursts. Like, stay until the end." Da, 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 da. They went through the whole thing, and then they said, "Any public input?" I think Brendan Zabreck or somebody said it, and crickets. Not one question.
Wow.
What?
On their minds right now.
I wonder. Like on the phone, you could feel everyone. Like, is there a trick? Like,
That's amazing.
Can you have like a hacky sack circle and still do social distancing? That's my question.
Yes, but you got to be really good.
Yeah.
I thought it was just naturally socially distanced.
Well,
Right?
6 feet. That's pretty impressive if you're doing that.
Let me tell you, if I played hacky sack, it would be like 2 feet because I'd be like,
Right.
So, Erica, do you want to talk about those traveling wares?
oh yeah, wares around the world. That's what we're calling them, as in WARES, the name Chris Ware, of a resident from town. He's from here. He grew up here. He actually grew up and took, and this is why it's relevant, he took Manchester Sailing Association's summer courses when he was like 12 or 13 to learn how to sail. It's like our summer public camp. And the Wares, he and his wife, Chris Ware, and Jennifer King, his wife, set out in September to sail around the world. And it was a big adventure. They took a lot of planning, a lot of training, really serious stuff. And it was just a dream of theirs. And so they were going to do some writing for us because we have a travel series called Postcards Home, where people from town write to their friends home and send in pictures and things. So he was all set up, you know, he and Jen were going to do it. And then when COVID hit, we started saying, oh my gosh, the wares, what's going on with the wares? So we checked in with them and they wrote a great piece. It's in the current issue. You can go online and see it. Great pictures. And they were, and this is actually serious stuff. They were planning, and they had hit an island off the coast of Venezuela, Bonaire, which is famous for its scuba diving. It's got amazing reefs, and they're all protected. So it's an amazing place. And they got a visa to stay there to go do some diving for a couple of weeks before they were going to shoot through the Panama Canal. And they got their visas, and then when they were about to go through the Panama Canal, they literally applied for the passage at 2:30 in the afternoon, and the next morning, the COVID closures started. And it included anything under 65 feet, which their boat is, to go through the Panama Canal. So suddenly they were told by there's a canal agent that they were using, and the canal agent said, well, you can come if you want, but you have to self-quarantine on your boat offshore and wait off Panama. And then there's no assurances you'll go through. And then he said, so they kind of held back. They got the last mooring in Bonaire because you're not allowed to anchor off of Bonaire because it's all protected. And so they went back. Their visa that they had gotten was actually for up to 6 months, thank God. And they're kind of stuck in paradise a little bit. They're stuck in Bonaire and they're making the best of it. They're making a lot of kind of repairs to the boats, and they're doing a lot of diving. They're free diving. They're training to free dive, which is kind of a fun thing because there is an 11 world record holder in Bonaire. He's Venezuelan. His name is Carlos. Oh my gosh, I forget his last name. I'm sorry. But they're training to free dive with him, and it's amazing. They've got pictures. So they literally are stuck there because everything in the Caribbean, once COVID hit, it started falling like dominoes. So everything closed. And then they looked at what their route would be, even Fiji, like well beyond the Caribbean. And do you know that New Zealand has closed until the end of the calendar year? So they literally had to adjust everything, and everything was closed. He said the closest thing they could do was go back to Florida.
Wow.
So he wrote a great piece, and I know they'll write again, actually. They're going to start sort of doing this. So we have a map, and you can sort of
see the Netflix series of this whole trip. I mean, that's
exactly
right there.
Yeah, and they're such lovely people, and he writes these pieces that just give you little details on things that you just wouldn't have thought of, like, you know, going through Hell's Gate in New York, and then going over to the Chesapeake Bay, and then heading down through the Caribbean to Bonaire, and the time there. It's great. Yeah.
Cool.
It's a surprise COVID piece.
It's a great piece. And I also would like to know what it's like to go through the Panama Canal. So can you just give him a tip that when he goes, he needs to write that piece?
He will. He'll write it.
That's awesome. Well, it's informative as always, Erika. We really appreciate it. And let's talk about 375th anniversary activities going on in Manchester next week.
Okay, got it.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, thanks again.
Have a good week.
Read the cricket.
Thanks.
No cricket.
All right, guys.